Date is August 6th, 2026. I am Roth. Uh, what I'm going to be doing here, I'm starting up this new series content type. Going to flush it out as we do it. But I'm just going to play different games and read you some literature as I do it, specifically Marxist, communist, socialist literature. Yeah, it's a good way for me to get comfortable reading things out loud, firstly, using my talking voice. Also, getting me, hopefully, start talking about things as I read them. At the start, it might be mainly just me reading. Kind of have to, I guess, build up confidence talking to a microphone, which for some reason feels stranger than talking to people about these things. We'll see if I'm able to actually focus on the game at all, but I will load into games at least, so you can, I guess, have something on the screen. What we're going to be reading today is Huey P. Newton's Revolutionary Suicide. Huey P. Newton, of course, from the Black Panthers. I am, let's say, I enjoy the Black Panthers a lot. I guess I'll say that. I took some time a couple months ago. I went to Chicago, went through a couple different historical sites. Like any other revolutionary movement, especially a Black liberation movement in America, they're all important to study, you know. But I think this text specifically, I really enjoy it. So I hope you enjoy it too. So it starts out with a manifesto it's titled, but a manifesto is sort of, it's not from Huey P. Newton. He's quoting from Margaret Walker for the People, in which it says, "Let a new earth rise, let another world be born, let a bloody peace be written in the sky, let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and a strength of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirits, in our blood. Let the martial song be written. Let the digress disappear. Let a race of men now rise and take control." Again, that was a quote from For My People by Margaret Walker. I'm going now, so this first section here, I think what we're going to do is try to get through this first section in just a couple pages. It's just explaining sort of the concept of revolutionary suicide. Before we do that, I'm going to get a good spot. You're watching Body's voice. With my left hand. Oh! This game is called Tier. I don't know if I said that. Yeah, it's in a playtest. Anybody can playtest it, and it's 2 gigs, so... And I'm dead. More time to read. Section 1 here. Revolutionary Suicide, the Way of Liberation. For 22 months in California, men's colony at San Francisco Obispo, after my first trial for the death of patrolman John Frey, I was almost continually in solitary confinement. There, in a 4x6 cell, except for books and papers relating to my case, I was allowed no reading materials. Take a moment to reflect on that. What danger you have by providing reading materials, even if it's from the state? It's such a basic right that could be afforded to any person, especially political prisoners. To continue, despite the rigid enforcement of this rule, inmates sometimes slipped magazines under my door when the guards were not looking. One that reached me was the May 1917 issue of Ebony magazine. It contained an article written by Lacey Banco, summarizing the words of Dr. Herbert Hendon, who had wrote a comparative study on suicide among Black people in the major American cities. Dr. Hendon found that suicide rate amongst Black men between the ages of 19 to 35 had doubled in the past 10 to 15 years, surpassing the rate for whites in the same age range. The article had and still has a profound effect on me. I have thought long and hard about its implications. Just something to consider, right? Like, I guess you could follow along this path with Huey if you you're around like the 1970s beginning era, and you're seeing the rise in suicide amongst black men, despite the, I mean, constant claims, same ones you'll see today from the right and the left, that increased integration, increasingly accepted, more opportunities in society, and we're just like continuing upon this path. Um, you have to wonder then, if that is the case, how come this group of people within a society that are being claimed to now have like the most stake in it, the most opportunity, are increasing their rates in suicide? And it's like a very important question. And I can take the like Marxist material perspective on this. It is very interesting. Um, so I think let's get more into what Huey P. Newton thinks about it. The Ebony article brought to mind Durkheim's classic study, Suicide. I'll note here if I mispronounce names and titles. I apologize. Feel free to pronounce me and put the phonetics in the comments. I have no shame about being corrected on things like this. The Ebony article brought to mind Durkheim's classic study, Suicide, a book I had read earlier while studying sociology at Oakland City College. To Durkheim, all types of suicide are related to social conditions. You could see I have to stop reading occasionally. This is supposed to be like the fun of doing it like this, but also it's kind of stressing me out already. Like, I want to read this book. I'm like cutting off Huey P. Newton to play my stupid 10 game. Hopefully it's entertaining, it keeps attention. Yeah, we'll see. I'm open to criticism on this too. To Durkheim, all types of suicide are related to social conditions. He maintains that the primary cause of suicide is not individual temperament, but forces in the social environment. In other words, suicide is caused primarily by external factors, not internal ones. As I thought about the conditions of black people and about Dr. Hendon's study, I began to develop Durkheim's analysis and to apply it to black experience in the United States. This eventually led to the concept of revolutionary suicide. Within that includes reactionary suicide. We're going to run a flank. I got to distract from my team here, and then we'll get into the next chapter. The next section of this chapter.
I see one.
Get me out of it. Supposed to just be distracting here. Might die. It's fine. They only have 3, so they have 1 defending or capturing. If anyone on Earth has played this game before knows what that means, but trust me, I'm lit. How about that? Now we win. To understand revolutionary... Let's go, we win! To understand revolutionary suicide, it is first necessary to have an idea of reactionary suicide. For the two are very different. Dr. Hendon was describing reactionary suicide, the reaction of a man who takes his own life in response to social conditions that overwhelm him and condemn him to helplessness. The young black men in his study had been deprived of human dignity, crushed by oppressive forces, and denied their right to live as proud and free human beings. A section in Dostoevsky's, even popular names I can't pronounce, Crime and Punishment provides a good analogy. One of the characters, Marmeladov, a very poor man, argues that poverty is not a vice. In poverty, he says, a man can attain the innate nobility of soul that is not possible in beggary. For while society may drive the poor man out with a stick, the beggar will be swept out with a broom. Why? because the beggar is totally demeaned, his dignity lost. Finally, the bereft of self-respect, immobilized by fear and despair, he sinks into self-murder. This is reactionary suicide. Connected to reactionary suicide, although even more painful and degrading, and focus on that Huey P. Newton is describing this as a more painful experience, is a spiritual death that has been the experience of millions of black people in the United States. This death is found everywhere today in the black community. Its victims have ceased to fight the forms of oppression that drink their blood. The common attitude has long been, what's the use? If a man rises up against a power as great as the United States, he will not survive. Believing this, many blacks have been driven to a death of the spirit rather than of the flesh, lapsing into lives of quiet desperation. Yet all the while, in the heart of every black, there is the hope that life will somehow change in the future. I do not think that life will change for the better without an assault on the establishment, says Huey, which goes on exploiting the wretched of this earth. This belief lies at the heart of the concept of revolutionary suicide. Thus, it is better to oppose the forces that would drive me to self-murder than to endure them. Although I risk the likelihood of death, there is at least the possibility, if not the probability, of changing intolerable conditions. This possibility is important because much in human existence is based upon hope without any real understanding of the odds. Indeed, we are all, black and white alike, ill in the same way, mortally ill. But before we die, how shall we live? I say with hope and dignity, and if premature death is the result, that death has a meaning reactionary suicide could never have. It is the price of self-respect. Taking a moment to think about that and play the game. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's far off to say there's a lot of people in, I'll say American society, not because it's uniquely specific in this sense, because what I'm familiar with, that have had people in their lives or know people that have committed suicide. I have personally, whether it's like friends or people I sort of hardly know or just interacted with, and I've had it is sort of like a juvenile thought when it's not like expanded upon. Like why would somebody do this? People who aren't suicidal will often think like this, like, why would you not, if you feel like giving up on everything, instead of killing yourself, just go do something that you thought you'd never be able to do, or go skydiving every day, or do crazy stuff. One, like, on the, analysis, like, part of this is a little juvenile. I don't believe suicide is always a rational decision. Of course, it is like typically an emotional decision, even if it's like pulled from like your material reality. But I think Huey does well to go further into this aspect of what this could mean, and explaining that like suicide just generally, this self-committed suicide, which is how we understand it, is reactionary in the sense that it is imposed by external forces, and it's not that maybe this person doesn't want to do something better or challenge these things. They have just lost all hope in doing so. Huey P. Newton's reply to that, instead of go do crazy things to try to make yourself happy, is to figure out what are the systems that are making you feel this way. And instead of killing yourself through the literal meaning of the word, I guess, like killing yourself or suicide, you instead dedicate your life to opposing the forces um, that make you want to not live your life. Um, I'll add, not to like, you know, uh, prelude too much, but a part of picking up this personality feels like a sort of liberation as well. Um, and it is liberation in avoiding your spiritual death in which you like give in to this enemy. Instead, it like is through being combative with these forces that you avoid your spiritual death, that you avoid reactionary suicide, and that you get into what Huey's going to keep explaining now, which is revolutionary suicide. We'll continue the reading. Revolutionary suicide does not mean that I and my comrades have a death wish. It means just the opposite. We have such a strong desire to live with hope and human dignity that existence without them is impossible. When revolutionary forces crush us, we must move against these forces, even at the risk of death. We will have to be driven out with a stick. Go back to the Dostoevsky analysis. We're poor, we're not beggars. We're being driven out with a stick, not swept away with a broom. Back to the text. Che Guevara said that to a revolutionary, death is the reality and victory of the dream. I misquote this every time. Che Guevara said that to a revolutionary, death is the reality and victory, the dream. Because the revolutionary lives so dangerously, his survival is a miracle. Bakunin spoke for the most militant wing of the First International. He made a similar statement in his revolutionary catechism. To him, the first lesson a revolutionary must learn is that he is a doomed man. Unless he understands this, he does not grasp the essential meaning of his life. When Fidel Castro and his small band in Mexico were preparing for Cuban Revolution, many of the comrades had little understanding of Buchanan's rule. A few hours before they set sail, Fidel went from man to man, asking who should be notified in case of death. Only then did the seriousness of the revolution hit home. Their struggle was no longer romantic. The scene had been exciting and animated, but when the simple, overwhelming questions of death arose, everyone fell silent. Many so-called revolutionaries in this country, black and white, are not prepared to accept this reality. The Black Panthers are not suicidal. Neither do we romanticize the consequences of revolution in our lifetime. Other so-called revolutionaries cling to an illusion that they might have their revolution and die of old age. That cannot be. I do not expect to live through our revolution, and most serious comrades probably share my realism. Therefore, the expression revolution in our lifetimes means something different to me than it does to other people who use it. I think the revolution will grow in my lifetime, but I do not expect to enjoy its fruits. That would be a contradiction. The reality will be grimmer. I have no doubt that the revolution will triumph. The people of the world will prevail, seize power, seize the means of production, wipe out racism, capitalism, reactionary intercommunalism, reactionary suicide. The people will live in a new world. Yet when I think of individuals in the revolution, I cannot predict their survival. Revolutionaries must accept this fact, especially the black revolutionaries in America, whose lives are in constant danger from the evils of a colonial society. Considering how we must live, it is not hard to accept the concept of revolutionary suicide. In this, we are different from white radicals. They are not faced with genocide. The greater, more immediate problem is the survival of the entire world. If the world does not change, all its people will be threatened by the greed, exploitation, and violence of the power structure in its American empire. The handwriting is on the wall. The United States is jeopardizing its own existence and the existence of all humanity. If Americans knew the disasters that lay ahead, they would transform the society tomorrow for their own preservation. The Black Panther Party is the vanguard of the revolution that seeks to relieve this country of its crushing burden of guilt. We are determined to establish true equality and the means for creative work. Some see our struggle as a symbol of the trend towards suicide among blacks. Scholars and academics in particular have been quick to make this accusation. They fail to perceive differences. Jumping off a bridge is not the same as moving to wipe out the overwhelming force of an oppressive army. When scholars call our actions suicidal, they should be logically consistent and describe all historically revolutionary movements in the same way. Thus, the American colonists, the French of the late 18th century, the Russians of 1917, the Jews of Warsaw, the Cubans, the NLF, the North Vietnamese, any people who struggle against a brutal and powerful force are suicidal. Also, if the Black Panthers symbolize the suicidal trend among blacks, then the whole third world is suicidal, because the third world fully intends to resist and overcome the ruling class of the United States. If scholars wish to carry their analysis further, they must come to terms with 4/5 of the world which is bent on wiping out the powers of the empire. In those terms, the third world would be transformed from suicidal to homicidal. Although homicidal is the unlawful taking of the life, and the third world is involved only in their own defense. Is the coin then turned? Is the government of the United States suicidal? I think so. Let's set up our tank here. I think Huey does a great job here, like even rhetorically calling out like the liberal. I guess for people that are less ordained, like liberal is like I'm not talking about just like the Democrats. It's like the political structure and the society interaction, things like this. I guess the liberal attitude towards incremental changes, and not being able to have a like full systematic analysis that usually will arise from materialism, which they often will reject. And Huey P. Newton takes the time to acknowledge what they are saying, right? Like, can a group be suicidal because of their attempts for change? If that is the case, then yes, all revolutionary actions are suicidal if you're going against like a large force. To coin that, or to go further, is the United States not suicidal? Is capitalism not suicidal? How far do we have to go? Like, where are we drawing the line? Who's going to disagree that capitalism is absolutely leading to ecological disaster in the future, right? In which our Earth becomes inhabitable for a very select few amount of people that are able to afford a very select few amount of services. Even if we look at World War, how many warheads exist right now that are nuclear? I don't even want to guess, because I'm going to say less than there are. I'm going to say like demonstrably less than there are. And then you look at the effects of imperialism. The Western world has continually manipulated, dominated, extorted the third world, or any like less developed country. They are building up a real animosity and hatred of them from 4/5 of the world. maybe Elon and Trump, for example, if we're talking today, think they can make their AI powerful enough. But as Huey correctly identifies, the day will come where 4/5 of the world realizes 1/5 of the world is bad for everyone else. It's illogical to think that this is not going to happen. The only hope you have that this won't happen is a moral hope that our system will change against its motivations of domination and accumulation. And if we take these things seriously, the United States of America is suicidal. If we take that seriously, revolutionary movements within the United States, outside of the United States, are, I guess, also suicidal in the way that it's revolutionary suicide. But it is an interest of self-defense. It is different. It's not homicidal. It's not suicidal. It is the protection of the world that allows us to embrace the idea of revolutionary suicide. We're almost done with this chapter, I think. So I will continue. It ended, is the United States of America suicidal? I think so. With this redefinition, the term revolutionary suicide is not as simplistic as it might seem initially. In coming the phrase, I took two knowns and combined them to make an unknown, a rhetoric phrase in which the word revolutionary transforms the word suicide into an idea that has different dimensions and meanings applicable to a new and complex situation. My prison experience is a good example of revolutionary suicide in action. For prison is a microcosm of the outside world. From the beginning of my sentence, I defied the authorities by refusing to cooperate. As a result, I was confined to lock up, a solitary cell. As the months passed and I remained steadfast, they came to regard my behavior as suicidal. I was told that I would crack and break under the strain. I did not break, nor did I retreat from my positions. I grew strong. If I had submitted to their exploitation and done their will, I would have killed my spirit and condemned me to a living death. To cooperate in prison meant reactionary suicide to me. While solitary confinement can be physically and mentally destructive, my actions were taken with an understanding of the risk. I had to suffer through a certain situation. By doing so, my resistance told them that I had rejected all that they stood for. Even though my struggle might have harmed my health, even killed me, I looked upon it as a way of raising the consciousness of the other inmates as a contribution to the ongoing revolution. Only resistance can destroy the pressures that cause reactionary suicide. The concept of revolutionary suicide is not defeatist or fatalistic. On the contrary, it conveys an awareness of reality in combination with the possibility of hope. Reality because the revolutionary must always be prepared to face death, and hope because it symbolizes a resolute determination to bring about change. Above all, it demands that the revolutionary sees his death and his life as one piece. Chairman Mao says that death comes to all of us, but it varies in its significance. To die for the reactionary is lighter than a feather. To die for the revolutionary is heavier than the Mount Tai. That concludes the introduction to revolutionary suicide by Huey P. Newton. I kind of cold-taped this. I'm hoping as I continue to do it, I'll learn formats, better ways to talk, when I should talk, when maybe should I just focus on the game sometimes, so leave a break. I'm unk now, so who knows how modern brains work. Anyways, this has been Trico Dialectics. reading the first section of Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton on August 6th of 2026. And I will post another one soon. Yahoo! Revolution in our lifetimes.